Shri Vidyam Shivavam Bhaganilayam Rinkar Mantro Jwalam Shri Chakrayankita Bindu Madhyavasati Shri Matsabhanaika Shri Matshanmukha Vignaraja Janani Shri Matjagan Mohini Meenakshim pranatosmi santatamaham Karunyavaranidhi Sinduraruna vigraham trinayana Manikyamalispura Taranayak Shekharam Smitamukhe Mapinavakshoruham Panibhyam Alipurna Ratna Chashakam Raktotpalam Bhibrati Saumyam Ratna Ghatasta Rakta Charana Dhyayen Parambika. Bolo Jagannatha ki Jai. First of all, I offer my obeisance to the Divine in you, with whose grace we are all here, right now, this moment. Narayani Namaste. I just, before we begin, I just wanted to get an idea of my audience. Who here has read my book on Kundalini? Okay, pretty much almost everybody. And who here meditates regularly? Okay, great. And who would say they have meditated for at least 100 hours? Phenomenal. So you will really benefit from this retreat, because I am assuming you already know the basics. Usually in my camps and retreats, there is a lot of humor and there are a lot of stories. But this is going to be a little different. This is going to be all humor and all stories. So this is going to be a little different, because my objective is that by the time we finish tomorrow, you would have a very clear idea on how to awaken your Kundalini. And beyond the theoretical exposition, which you can find in books, my sole focus is going to be on the practical aspects of Kundalini awakening. There are many schools of thoughts when it comes to awakening Kundalini. Some say you have to do many kriyas. Some say you need initiation. Some say it cannot be done in one lifetime. And some people will tell you that you have to wear certain kind of clothes or pendants and chakras and align them and fix their spin and manage their balance and so on. That has not been my personal experience. What I have realized is when you meditate with a certain intensity, you automatically awaken the Kundalini. Think about boiling milk, for example. When you boil milk, you don't have to sit there and stir the milk. That's one way to create heat in it. You stir it at such rapid pace that maybe it will become so heated that it will boil, although I don't know what that visual will look like. The other is you keep boiling it. You keep the temperature at a certain degree, and eventually the milk will not be able to retain that temperature, won't be able to absorb that temperature, and therefore it will boil. So what I'm trying to say is, if I have to boil a vessel of milk, I don't have to keep on increasing the temperature. I just have to bring it to a point and leave it there. Something similar happens with Kundalini. It is your primal energy that is living inside you. Although I'm very carefully using the word inside, because there is no outside or inside. When we say, I am living inside my body, I'm severely limiting my supreme consciousness. I am using this body, but I also exist outside this body. So awakening of Kundalini is called Shakti Chalan. Shakti means your energy, and Chalan means to move it, to awaken it. When it moves, it is called Shakti Chalan. That kriya, that process of awakening your Kundalini is called Shakti Chalan. Now, we will repeatedly go back to the core text on Kundalini, the first original text on Kundalini, which is Lalita Sahasranama. In Lalita Sahasranama, which literally translates for 1000 names of Mother Goddess, there is a sutra, there is a certain verse that goes, Mooladhar ek nilya, Brahma Granthi Vibhedani, Manipuranta Vishnu Granthi Vibhedani, Agga Chakrantaralasta, Rudra Granthi Vibhedani, Sahasara Ambaja Ruda Sudhasara Vivarshani, Tadillata Samruchi Shat Chakro Parisanstita, Mahasakti Kundalini Bistantu Taniyasi. Mooladhara Ambuja Ruda. So, Mooladhara ek nilya, Brahma Granthi Vibhedani. Before we worry about chakras, there are 3 knots that we have to think through. You can either adopt the brief method of invocation, or you can go for the elaborate method of invoking your primal energy. And today and tomorrow, between today and tomorrow, I will share with you both the methods. So, first is the knot we call in Mooladhara your root chakra. It's called Brahma Granthi. Granthi means knot, and Brahma means the knot of creation. Throughout our lives, one of the greatest desire we have that sometimes can be so hard to get past is the desire to create. We equate all progress with creation. We equate our growth with more creation. If today I have created $50 worth of wealth in my bank account, tomorrow if I create $100, then I feel I'm growing. When we are not creating, we think we are stagnated. And this desire is at the root of all desires. And this propels us. And that is why root chakra is the first chakra. And we just have to go back a little bit, just about perhaps the only story I'd like to share with you when it comes to Kundalini. We have to go back a few thousand years. One of the avatars of Lord Vishnu was Parashurama. He was a great sage. But to take revenge of the killings that happened in his family, he decided to slay the Kshatriya clan. And he decided that the only purpose of his life was to kill these people whom he considered his enemies. So one after the other, he, with his axe in his hand, he went about and he killed 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 and he slayed and he slayed and he slayed till he really had no more energy left in his body. When he looked around, he realized over the last 2 decades or so, he really pretty much had killed all his enemies. And then his ancestors appeared before him and said, Parashurama, this is enough. This is not what we want. This is not what we were asking from you. You have slain, and now this is enough. Now stop this madness. Parashurama stopped at the bidding of his ancestors, but he found no peace in his heart, which is, by the way, the case with most people. Anything we do in life, we are pretty much doing it because we want to experience happiness. And we think maybe this method will give me happiness, maybe success will give me happiness, maybe children will give me happiness, maybe my partner will give me happiness, something, that ever elusive feeling of peace. And we are not happy with moments of peace. We want eternal peace. Because somewhere deep in your subconscious or in your superconscious, somewhere you know that it is possible. You know that this is your original nature. I just have to realize what I always had it in me all along. So Parashurama went around killing, and when he stopped, he thought everything was done. Now he would be happy because all the people he disliked were no longer there in his life. But the truth was far from it. He experienced no joy in his heart. And he went around wandering from one place to another, not knowing how to seek that happiness or how to experience that joy, until he met Narada, one of the sages. And Narada said to him, you need a guru. You need somebody to guide you on this path. And you're too headstrong, Parashurama. I cannot guide you. Because Narada was a bhakta. He was a devotee. He could just surrender, sing the glories of God and be happy. But such is not the composition of every human being. And such is definitely not the composition of an educated human being who's been trained to think and question and be curious, which is at the root of human progress, by the way. So Parashurama was trained in Vedas and Vedanta, and this was not his style to just sit and chant. So Narada said, my method will not work for you. I am just happy to sing glories of Sri Hari and I'm happy, but that won't work for you. So you need to find an appropriate teacher. Parashurama said, if you know this much, then you must also know who is or who would be a good teacher for me. He said, you have to go to Dattatreya. He was referred to as the Lord Dattatreya. So Dattatreya, he said, alone can guide you. Born of the 3 supreme energies, he knows the 3 states of consciousnesses. He understands the truth in its entirety. And he alone can handle somebody like you. When you have a brilliant genius student, only 2 kinds of people can handle such a student. Only 2 kinds of teachers can handle such a student. One, somebody who's been there, done that, who's an equal match, a genius. Or 2, somebody who's incredibly accepting and patient. If you're patient with a genius, willing to listen to his or her ideas, you will help them come out of their shell. So Dattatreya said, you have to go. Narada said, you have to go to Dattatreya. Parashurama, made his journey, reached a place where Dattatreya was. He entered the cave and he was shocked. The text on Sri Vidya that talks about this story narrates that 2 women were sitting by his side, both one on each side. And Parashurama thought, is this guy going to teach me the transcendental truth? This doesn't sound right. This looks more like Osho. So it's something is not quite right here. But Dattatreya was testing him. A really good teacher will not take on a disciple until he or she has tested. And a really good disciple will never ask for initiation unless they've already tested and made up their mind about a certain guru. So Parashurama until then had not made up his mind. But Dattatreya knew that here was somebody of immense potential. Somebody who had determination, that spark in his eyes. That this person can surely make a difference to the world. To test to what degree Parashurama could surrender, Dattatreya had 1 woman on each side. And when Parashurama bowed before him with that skepticism, Dattatreya went quiet first and then said to him, I'll have to work a great deal on you. You are still so caught up in forms. You are so conditioned by the bookish knowledge that we'll have to work very hard. But you have the potential. If you do what I'm telling you to do, things will work out. So Parashurama said what it is that I have to do. He said, first, I need you to learn to calm your mind. So for 12 years, I need you to just meditate on the divine energy so that I can see the seeds of devotion in your consciousness. Until that is there, I really cannot give you the sadhana you are seeking. Parashurama said, your word is my command. Parashurama will do what Dattatreya tells him to do. For 12 years, he meditated on the form of Mother Divine. 12 years later, when he went back, he said, I no longer have any feelings of revenge towards my enemies. But now I really wish to see the one I've been meditating on. I am desperate for a vision of the goddess. I really wish to invoke that energy, to see that energy manifest in front of me. Dattatreya said, you are certainly ready, so I will initiate you into Sri Vidya. So he gave him the mantra, the sonic energy that would help Parashurama, and said for 12 years, here is the mantra and here is the yantra, the energy field. Meditate on the yantra and meditate on the mantra and you will get the results. Parashurama went away. For 12 years, he did the meditation exactly as he was instructed using that mantra. 12 years later, he had a glorious vision of the energy he was born out of. We all have a source. A seed can never be as big as a tree. But when it sprouts, one day it will be a tree. But a fruit will never be as big as a tree. We can't look at a fruit and make out this came from this tree. Similarly, your source is much grander and much bigger than our limited existence. And all that we need to do is connect with the source to feel the power of the source. Parashurama had a glorious vision of his source. And he went back to Dattatreya. And he bowed before him, he took his blessings and said, Master, really, it was unlike anything I'd ever imagined. Really, it was worth it. But why am I still not at peace? I had the vision, I saw my source, but I am still not at peace. I'm not feeling that life bubbling in me. I'm not feeling that joy overflowing out of my consciousness. Where have I gone wrong? And Dattatreya laughed, like all good gurus. He said, you have not done the full thing yet. Now you have reached at the final stage. You've seen the source, but you are still caught up in the duality. Somehow you are thinking, I am seeing the source. But you are the source, Parashurama. You are the source. In a tiny seed is the entire knowledge of a tree. In the tiny seed, the entire wisdom of how this tree is going to be, what it's going to look like when it grows up, what kind of fruits will come from the boughs, all of that information, that wisdom, that insight lives in the seed. So Parashurama, you are still thinking in duality, you are still caught up in that separation between you and the divine. Until you experience that oneness, you will not be fully awakened. You know there is a source, and perhaps intellectually you know you are the source. But until that experiential understanding dawns on you, you wouldn't be no better off. Parashurama said, so what do I have to do for that? He said, 12 more years I need from you. Meditate on the supreme energy, Kundalini. Kundalini has been named the formless energy of the divine. So meditate on Kundalini, he said. These are the chakras, these are the knots, this is the process of meditation, and this is the sonic energy, the mantra. So meditate on Kundalini for 12 years and then tell me how you feel. It was a long prescription, naturally. But Parashurama, when that Kundalini awakened, he truly was baffled. We have read in many works, you may have read, when Kundalini awakened, this happened and that happened. I don't know about those people who claim to have their Kundalini awakened without any practice. You cannot sit at a piano and play a Beethoven or a Mozart without getting that training first. But you can sit at a piano and bang some keys, and maybe some good music sometimes comes out. But to have that understanding, underlying understanding of how that works is essential to be able to replicate your experience, to be able to create beautiful music every single time. So Parashurama meditated when his Kundalini awakened. He said, truly, I won't say I have found my source, Master. I understand that I am the source now. Nothing more is left to awaken. The three knots have been totally melted. They're untied now. Whenever you are trying to untie a knot, if you ever notice, if you're impatient, if you're aggressive, it will take you much longer to untie the knot. On the other hand, if you are relaxed, if you are a little loose, if you are patient, first thing you do is you try to work out which end to tug at? Which end to pull? Oh, this end is not working, I will try something else. So in this badly entangled life, entangled in desires, expectations, in our emotions and feelings, in our positivity and negativity, you need to know which strand to pull. And force does not work there. To untangle, you need patience and you need analysis. So intelligence is of use on the path of spirituality. And the beautiful thing about Kundalini is you can awaken this energy without believing in anything at all. Without believing in the existence of God or a creator or a supernatural power or somebody up there calling shots, none of that is needed. All you need is persistence, a certain degree of self-discipline. So the first thing is the knot of creation which sits at the root chakra. That is where your Kundalini sits. It's not the natural abode of Kundalini, but it has slipped after getting drunk. And when you get drunk, you always slip up. Somebody is drunk on power. Somebody is drunk on alcohol. Somebody is drunk on status, some on fame, some on wealth, and so on. Sudha Sarabhi Varshani Tadillata Samruchi. When Kundalini awakened, when it moved, when it reached Sahasrara, it was like a flash of lightning. And there it drank on the nectar and it just slipped because it was heady. It was a heady experience. A few months ago, we had, in fact, in the announcement, that testimonial was shared. When those researchers came to do a study on my brain, EEG study, prior to doing that study, they had met me 2 years earlier even. So they remembered some of the claims I'd made in a certain discourse. They came after scheduling and all that with all their equipment, and they said, so can you demonstrate us awakening of the Kundalini? Although they did not use the word Kundalini, they said we don't want to get caught up in your definitions that will ruin the purity and the objectivity of our experiment. So we are only interested in seeing the activity in your brain, they told me. I said, sure. So can you, they said, show us that activity in that region of your brain? I said, yes. So they put some EEG cap on me, and they plugged in a software that would create spatial imaging from whatever the signals my brain was sending. And there was a laptop, the screen of which they were observing. There was a video camera that was recording it all. And I was sitting at the back of the laptop, and a couple of Swamijis and 3 people, the researchers, were sitting, observing the screen and the constant signals that they were getting. So they plugged in within a couple of seconds, 1 tick, 2 tick, and they could see extremely stable and active frontal lobe. Neurologically, this is a region of the brain that is associated with vision and foresight and planning and so on. So this was very stable. It didn't budge, it didn't move. Then they asked me after a few minutes, can you shift it? In one of your discourses, they said, you claimed that you can shift this sensation, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm feeling sensations. When they are concerned, they are seeing those signals. They said, can you shift it to the left side of your brain? I said, yes. 1, 2. That thing shifted to the left. They didn't see it shifting, they just see it shifted. It was so quick. They just, now this thing was on the left side of the brain. Then they said, can you move it to the right side of the brain? I said, yes. Moved it to the right, back of my brain. Yes, done. They said, can you now bring it to the center, the crown, which we call the final chakra, Sahasrara, the crown chakra. But they didn't use the word chakra. Can you bring it there? I said, yes. You need to give me about 4 seconds for that. So it came. Now, I am not seeing the screen. It's all very new to me. And so many things attached to your head and you're still in a state of meditation. It's like being a householder and meditating. So they said, this thing, everybody who was seeing the screen, that's how I knew they saw something good. They said, everybody went like this. Wow. That was almost pretty much unanimous reaction. So Vidya Swami was also there, and he's intricately involved in preparing meals for me. So afterwards, when I asked him, what did you see? He said, Babuji, it was like milk boiling. And it was suddenly as if milk boiled from a vessel. One of the researchers said it was like, suddenly he said, it was like seeing a Christmas tree. That when Kundalini went to that region, the whole region lit up. And I think I lost some hair as well. But the whole region lit up. And this also was a good thing because it reaffirmed my own faith that what I'm experiencing can be seen by science. It was a fabulous thing. All my life I'd been looking for somebody who could demonstrate any of this throughout my journey. But I only got people who would talk, and machines, either they won't go under it on one pretext or the other, or they won't show anything and they'll say this is beyond the grasp of science. So I was delighted at this discovery. And when I'm sitting in that state, they said to me, okay, can you now please shift it back to the left side? I said, what are you talking about? Milk has turned into ghee, into butter. Kundalini has hit the highest point. I cannot just now shift it anymore. So this is a last stop. You need to give me time now. I can then do the whole thing again. But I cannot make Kundalini go up and then shift, because then I'm in a dizzy state myself. I am in a very blissed out state at that time. So they said okay, and they were very happy with the results. And I think 2 or 3 days later, they contacted Vidhu Swamiji, again the other Swamiji, and they said, can we come one more time and do that same experiment? Because first time could have been a fluke. So we just want to be sure before we publish any paper or before we present it at any conference or send it to the ethical committee for approval and so on. I said, I am very pressed for time, but I will make time for this, because this whole thing lasts about 2 to 4 hours, the whole experiment, setting up and everything else. So immediately they came back to the ashram a week later with even more equipment. Now they plug ECG on my heart and they put a blood pressure thing and measuring everything. The heartbeat, that thing went crazy anyway. It was the most abnormal ECG the cardiologist said he's seen in his career. And I was intentionally producing that ECG by saying, I will now bump up my heart rate, I'll now bring it down, I will now shut it down, I'll bring it up. So the same results, identical, not an iota of difference, not even the slightest of the slightest delta. The same results they got the second time as well. Which means what you are dealing with here is not what you are born with. I wasn't born with it. It's something you awaken. It is something you master. It is something you champion. And you can be equally effective in doing so even if you were to adopt the brief method, In the brief method, you only focus on the 3 knots. And in the elaborate method, you focus on every single chakra. If you meditate on every single chakra, you open every single chakra, then you get the benefits associated with that chakra. If you don't do that and you only focus on the 3 knots which are associated with the 3 chakras, in such an case, in such an event, you only experience the benefits of Kundalini awakening. That state of bliss where you slow down naturally, where your thoughts, your emotions don't overpower you as much.